Thank you for joining us for our third week of webinars. Today we will be going over bracket tournaments or match play and some multi-day tournaments, multi-day events. My name is Colin Westwood, and let's get started. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat window, and Kevin will be happy to answer you, or we will answer them at the end. So to try to help save time, I built out our events already. We're going to start with our bracket one today. Now, bracket match play, they mean the same thing. It just happens to be what Golf Genius decided to call it for their program. And you'll see the option for it under event, and you'll have these multi-round tools. As you can see right now, they're grayed out, and that is because we don't have the right things built yet. So if we hover over it, it'll actually tell us there's no rounds defined, so that we can't actually set anything up yet. One of those helpful things that they do to remind you of what you need to do first. So under golfers and event division flights and teams, I'll just show you that I already have 20 people in here. And we're going to go to our calendar to add rounds because we have no rounds remaining yet right now. So we need to add rounds. And we're actually going to add 5 rounds total. We're going to have a qualifier round to get into the bracket of 16, and then we'll have the 4 rounds needed for the 16 match play. So we will go ahead and create these 5 in a row. One of the other things you might be asking is that with a bracket tournament, a lot of people do these over months at a time. So they give people like a month or so to get the first round in. And if you're ever doing it that way, I would always set the tournament, the day of the round, to be whatever the final day is that's available. So for example, let's say that we're doing this for just the winter time. We could actually set around for like the 17th, meaning they have to have it done by then. We could have one for the 10th of March, and then even keep going into April and May if we wanted to. So that's a way to do it for those club events that you have where you're going to be allowing people to have a lot of time. Today we're just going to do it with these 5 days right in a row since we just want to show you how it works. So we're going to save that. Let this process. Okay, so round 1 will be our qual. Round 2 will be 16. We'll have 8, 4, and our final. Okay, got those all in there. So now if we go back to event, we'll see here that our multi-round tools are now available since we have rounds built. So we're going to go to bracket tournaments. We're going to use our all golfers division because that's the only one we have right now. And we're going to create one bracket tournament. Hit next. Okay. So we can start with our name. So today we're just going to call it a webinar. And number of players, we're going to have 16. So when it says for number of regions, this is talking about how you want the bracket to look. Whether you want it to look like a standard bracket for 8 on one side, 8 on the other, and then meeting in the middle, or which would be 2 regions, or you can have one region where it's just all on one side working down to a pair of 2. We'll do it for 2 regions just because that's kind of the standard look of it. We can name them if we want. We are just going to go with 1 and 2. Alright. Yep. So we are going to set our rounds. These are the rounds that we're going to include, but actually we're going to get rid of this. So as you can see here, we have, since we add, it tells us that we need 4 rounds total to complete this. And so it already realized, since I selected 5, that the Thursday one will be a qualifying round. So we're going to go to our tournament settings. Here we're going to set what type of match play we'll be playing. We're going to be playing own ball in each hole, 18 holes total. Our USGA net, but we're going to use 90%. And we're going to retain ties. If we click on handicaps here, we get, again, our more options available. So we can set matches, we can set decimal points, and if we were doing a 2-person event, so teams of 2 versus teams of 2, we would also see in here the ability to reduce the difference in teams so that they cannot have greater than 8. We can set a default course. We're not going to do that here just because of how this test area is set up. But normally, if for you would have a default course you just select, and you can always change it as people come in. We can do seeding if we want. We'll just leave that on for now. And we can also do affiliations. Down here are some other options. Constellation bracket. So this isn't the same thing as like a 2 elimination bracket. This more just means that you have not only the first and second place play for first and second, but you have second and third play for third, rather than just them tying. And we also have the ability to make the final round a bracket of 36 holes, rather than just their 18. But we're not going to use that today. Got all that in there. And, oh, so it won't let us do that. Alright. So it needed 4 rounds, and we selected 4. So we're going to hit next. Let this process. Okay. So here's where we would set up how the players look in the brackets. We can just do it manually, but what we're going to do is actually autofill by our qualifying round. And so we're going to go to the qualifying round here real quick, just so we can get this set up. We will come back to our bracket and finish that in just a second. So we're going to go to rounds, go to our qualifying round on the first. Going to create our quick pairings with automatic. Since this is just going to be a quick net event to get into the qualifying round, we don't need to do anything too special. Set up some basic pairings here. Select of all players. Set the tee times to white. Set some quick tee times. And we'll save that. We'll go to our tournaments. Add in. Now we're adding in a basic net tournament for our qualifier. Player versus field, 18 holes, net, good to go. Alright, and now we're going to go down to our scores and do our random scores. I hope this is looking pretty familiar, since this is kind of what we've been going over the past 2 weeks. This is just a basic setup for a one-day event, but we're going to apply it to our bracket tournament. Okay, so now that we have our scores in there for this qualifying round of net play, we're going to look at our results. Alright, now we have down to 16, and now we can use these results to add to our bracket. So we're going to go back to event, bracket tournaments. Alright, we already have our one here, so we're going to click on the actions button. We're going to go edit the tournament just to make sure we have everything set up right. Got our 4 rounds selected that we needed. have our names. Even the default course came in, which is good. Alright, so now we can actually fill the bracket. To do that, we click on our actions, we go edit first round matches. Alright, and we're going to go. So one of the other things that this will do is if we didn't want to do qualifying rounds, and let's say we only had 17, or if we had 15 people for a 16 round, for a 16 bracket, we could allow for a bye and just leave one spot open and allow a bye. But we're going to go autofill. We're going to go by previous results. If you select which tournament it is, which is the match play qualifier, hit go. And now this takes those results of those top 16 people for the net and moves them in and actually seeds them based off of where they started or how they did in the qualifying round. And we see here we have our 4 left over. And now we hit done. So now our bracket is officially completed. We see here we have a general overlook of it, our name, the size is 16, our fill rate's 100%. Now this doesn't have to be 100% for you to continue. Like I said before, the program will handle buys. So let's say you see this to be only 95%. That's probably just because you have one person getting a buy for the first round. I have 2 regions, 4 rounds total. Type of tournament we're playing, 18 holes net at 90%, and no consolation. Okay, so now that we have our bracket tournament set, now we're going to go through each of the 4 rounds to set up pairings and then do scoring and just to kind of show you the general flow of that. Alright, so anytime we have multiple rounds in an event, under the rounds tab, we can click here and it will show us all of them that we can go to. So we started with our qualifying round, which we finished. Now we're going to go to our first bracket, which is 16. So you'll see here that these 3 are already defined. Excuse me. That is because the bracket tournament automatically created pairings, set the course and tee time, and tournament type for you for the 4 rounds. There's no real need to modify these. Now, if you wanted to add a side game for each round, you could do that in tournaments. We could modify the pairings if we wanted to, but for the most part, we wouldn't need to. As you can see here, they're set to the default white tee that we have. If you were playing something different, the way to change this would be to set course and tees. We could select all the players, select the course that we wanted, and then change it. And for here, we just have our test course of white, so we will leave it at that. But you do have the option to change this if you have others available. We're going to hit cancel. For this, since in most regards, bracket tournaments are played whenever people have time, you don't have to have a tee time set in there. If you wanted to, you could, but it's not a requirement. So I just want to show you how the system automatically created the tournament. As you can see here, we are under round 2, or our bracket of 16. As you can see, there's no tournaments listed, and the reason for that is because this individual day has no tournaments. The only tournament that we have created is a multi-round bracket tournament, and that would show up only under events and bracket tournaments, not actually under rounds, because technically there's nothing individually for this day. Under the rounds tab is just for the individual day. So now we're going to go to enter hole by hole scores. We also have the ability to enter match results if we didn't want to do hole by hole scores and just do final results. But we'll just do hole by hole scores just to kind of go through this with our random scores. Enter them in there for us, and we'll test the leaderboard out. Let it process. Alright. So the reason we have two of these, one bracket and two bracket, is because of our two regions that we created. So we can just select here. Now this is I'm glad this happened, because I wanted to show you this. So Caleb and Oliver, as you can see here, there's no result. That means that they tied for the 18 holes under the hole by hole scores. Now to edit this, what we need to do is we'll go to rounds and enter match results. And now for Caleb and Oliver, we see that they're all square after 18. So we can click on them and go, say they go into 20 holes, and Oliver wound up winning. So now we can select him and we can save it. Oh, looks like Chad and Owen did the same thing. So let's say they just went to 19 holes and Owen won. Save that. It'll now update our leaderboard. Alright. Now we can look here, and now we see that Oliver is set to 20 holes. And then if we look under bracket number 2, we have our other 8 people with our 4 winners. These can be printed out to be posted under the restore, print, adjust leaderboard. We can go print leaderboard, or we can actually print brackets, which is how we'd probably prefer it. Let's say we just want 1 on the left and 2 on the right. Do it by portrait. We will save and print. Let it process. This will come out as a PDF. Alright. Download our PDF. And now we can see our first bracket, our region 1, and we have our region 2 on the other side. And now we can print these and post them to have a standard style look of bracket. Due to page constraints, there's not an easy way to get it all on one page. But if you wanted to play with it, you could edit it yourself, but the Golf Genius program wouldn't do it for something this large enough, just because there's not enough room on the page and they don't want to make it not visible for people. But let's just close this and go backwards. Alright, and we are done printing, so we are going to go back to rounds, display leaderboard, just to make sure that everything's set. Have of our winners for the 8th one. So now we're going to go to our next round of 8. So we go to rounds, go to select round, come down to our 8th one. Going to enter in our hole by hole scores. Do random. And we're just going to close this, that way we can go into rounds and match play results to make sure we didn't have any all squares. No. So the reason this didn't come up is because I didn't test the leaderboard yet, so it didn't determine who actually won yet. So I need to actually create the leaderboard so it will do this processing and calculate the tournament to then add in the match play results. Alright, so now we'll see our result, and we do have an all square again. Just enter this. Mr. Brown will win after 19, and he'll win. Ryan will win after 20. Save that, let it process. Alright, look at our brackets. And as you'll see, it always keeps the rest of the brackets here and just works its way down. So it's not like these go away after each round. Alright, let's try to finish this up. Go to our nets. Now we won't enter scores this time. We're just going to go right to match play results. And we'll go Brown, 1 up, and Mr. Lopez after 19 holes. And if you ever want to type something different in here, this space is free. It's not like you have to type it in a certain look. There's a limit to the number of places you can enter, but you can enter it in whichever way you would like. Can I hit save? So now it's adding what we just did to the leaderboard. Since we didn't enter scores, we don't have to. It doesn't actually need them for the bracket. Now we can see here that both one bracket and two brackets are full. So in the next one, it'll create a third one for the final. Go to rounds, select a round, down to our final on Monday. And we're going to enter in our match play results. Say Mr. Brown won after 22 holes. They played a lot. Save that. And now we have our championship bracket, our final. Mr. Brown, Mr. versus Lopez, and Mr. Brown won after 22 holes. So now we can print all this. And as before, but this time we will select our championship. And we can go left or right also. It'll be on a separate page, so we'll just leave it on left. And we'll save and print. And now we have the ability to post this up, and so it'll show everything that happened. Just taking a little bit here. Download our PDF. Now we have our full bracket from region 1, full bracket from region 2, with our final championship at the bottom. So that's basic. That's a basic bracket tournament for you. And again, I know most of you don't do these, 5 days in a row like this. So I want to assure you that this does work if you want to take it over a longer period of time. Now, one way we haven't talked about this a lot since the first webinar, but I wanted to show you this quickly on the help button. If we click on help, we come up with the knowledge base for tournament management that Golf Genius keeps up to date. And if we were to type in here bracket tournament and search, we'll come up with an article, well, actually a lot of articles, but we'll look at the first one, which is general overview of bracket tournaments. And you'll see here, even right off the bat, it talks about how you can set up a season-long or even over a weekend bracket tournament. And it talks about how you should do that with adding rounds and suggesting that each round is set for the deadline of completion rather than the start. And then goes into how to add them into leads and qualifying rounds. So this is always a very helpful tool when you're trying to do something new and aren't quite sure if you're doing it the right way. Alright, so we'll X out of that. Now we're going to click back on our breadcrumbs back to our customer center. We're going to get out of this tournament or this event. Now we're going to go to our webinars, go to our multi-day events. So I showed you how to do a bracket. Now I'm just going to go through kind of the basics of a multi-round event. So this is a 5-round event that I set up. Under golfers, just show you how I set this up. Event, division, flights, and teams. Alright, so what I did is I set up a bunch of different divisions. We have all golfers, which is our automatic one. I have 2-person teams. I have 4-person teams. I have gross skins and net skins. This is an important thing to remember with skins, is that the system is a lot of people don't get in both, so it is always good to separate gross and net if you're going to pay separately. Alright, and now under rounds, we'll see here that I already set up pairings and courses for everything. I just did it automatically, and we're going to go through tournaments now. So what I want to start with is under event. We're going to go to multi-round tournaments. So let me show you this real quick first. Alright, so there's multi-round series and multi-round tournaments. Series is more meant for when you are doing one set of tournaments over one type of tournament over numerous days, where multi-round tournament is, as it says here, tournaments over multiple rounds such as multi-day championships or event rainer boards. And for the most part, this is the one you'll use. Series is, you can use series also, but we usually stick with multi-round tournaments. It just seems to work better for us. Alright, so in a multi-round tournament, the setup is very similar to the look of setting up a tournament for an individual round, except one of the other options it has now is what days are being played. So for the first 3 days, we are going to do our two-person games, and we're going to set up gross and net own ball, one person. So we have our 3 days selected. We're going to be using just our plain all golfers division. This is going to be a simple gross and net. Everyone's playing their own ball, player versus field game. Now, own ball, 18 holes, USGA net, 100%, and we're good to go. So we're going to save that. And now we're going to add another multi-round event. We're going to do a gross skins game. Actually, we're going to save our skins name for individual days. Alright, now we're going to do a two-person round event over these 3 days. We're going to use our two-person team division. We're going to select a two-person team, and we will call this two-team event. Alright, now the tee sheets won't be physically organized by players, so we will go by, make sure we select that they are not organized. Payouts are to the players, team scores will be included, stroke format. Now this is going to be team all versus field, and then we're going to go best ball in each hole. We still have our other options here, but this time we'll just go best ball. 18 holes, USGA net, and as you can see here, we don't have the option to do net and gross, and I'm going to show you how we did around that right now. Alright, so we're going to save that. Alright, so now we just did a two-person best ball over those 3 days for net. Now we're going to do one for our gross. Let's name this something better this time. Two-person gross over these 3 days with our two-person team. And they are two-person teams, not organized. We're going to team all versus field, best ball in each hole. Except this time under handicap, we're going to go with gross. And we're going to save that. Alright, let's just rename this guy real quick so it's a two-person net, so that way we know. Sorry, taking a little bit to load here. Okay, like we've done before in a single day round, we were able to set up a gross and net bias, just like we wanted to do here, which I did not select. Alright, let's fix this. Alright, this will be our net. So the reason it's not coming up with this is because they're multi-day. Alright. So now this is one thing we haven't shown you yet is linking tournaments. So what we're going to do is take this 2-person net and 2-person gross, link them together, so that way the system will actually sort out based off of net and gross and do a bias for us. So we're going to link them together, and we'll throw all this 2-person overall. Alright, so now it's asking us which ones we want to link together. As you can see, we can link to individual rounds, but we want to do an overall for our 2-person net and 2-person gross. Now we're going to go to advanced settings, and it's going to say how do you want to link them? What do you want to do? So what we want to do is actually keep the best result of selected tournaments, gross or net. And then which one should we set in bias? And for the bias will be gross. You can set this to either one you want. But now this ability to do this to keep best result of selected tournaments is not available for all types of tournaments. It's primarily for best balls, and it won't work with scrambles or Staplefords, but for a lot of these type of events with best balls and individual play, it does have this available. I'm going to show you this add result here one also. So we're going to save this. Okay, so these are our games that we're going to have that actually last for more than one round. We're going to have our net event over the first 3 rounds. We're going to have a 2-person best ball, net, and gross over the first 3 rounds. But we still have 2 more rounds, and we have some side games we want to do. Now, a lot of people look at this and go, well, this is still a multi-round event, so that means I must just put all my different tournaments in here and only select one day. Well, that is actually incorrect. So what we want to do now is go to our individual rounds and put in those side games, put in those different tournaments that only happen on that individual day. So we're going to go to rounds, and let's say our first round, we're going to go to tournaments. As you can see here, since we added multi-round tournaments, it now shows us down here what's happening with those. So let's say we want to add our side games for skins. We're going to go gross. Go to format and base it skins. Player versus field, and the rest we're going to leave the same. And except change this to gross. Save that. Alright, so now we have all of our tournaments for the first round. Going to enter in our scores. Go to random. Get everything filled in. Go to our leaderboard. I'll process the results for us. As you can see here, it has a lot to process when you start getting into these multi-round events. Alright, so now we can look at our net person, and it always looks at total to par as kind of the basis for with these multi-round events. But I'll show you in round 1 where they're at. We can go to our 2-person games. And the other thing you'll notice is that there's not a result. As we can see here, we have our positions, and this is due from the linking of those 2 different events. So Owen got first net because otherwise he would have been like 5th gross. So that linking is actually causing the same thing that we could have done in an individual event a lot easier, but the linking allows us to do it over multiple events like this. And then we have our grossed in for our individual game. Alright, let's go to our nets round. Let's add in a net skins one. So go add tournament. Go net stins, format basic stins. Going to leave the rest standard and make sure our handicap is USGA net and save. Now we're going to go rounds, enter scores. Going to do our random again. And test the leaderboard. Alright, we'll let all this load, and then I'm just going to go right to round 3, so that way we can look at the overall results for those first 3 days of the best ball and the individual net. That way we can look at this when it's all done. But as you can see here, now that we have 2 rounds in there, it shows round 1, round 2 with the total. Go rounds, select our 3rd round. We're not going to do any side games this time. Going to go enter in scores. Go random. Test the leaderboard. Okay, so this was the final of our first 3 days. And the other 2, we're going to do 4-man team events. We're going to do a scramble and then also a Stableford, so I can show you another way of linking events. Alright, so now that we have our final day, now we can see the final position with total to par net with our 3 rounds and then our overall totals. And then again, we still have everything sorted based off of where they would with a bias of gross, the gross event. And this is again due to that linking that we did for the multi-round tournaments. Alright, so that's the basics for that. I want to continue on to the rounds 4 and 5. So what I want to do here is show you how we would take individual game on the 4th and an individual game on the 5th round and link them together. So on round 4, we're going to play a 4-person scramble. We're going to use our 4-person teams, and under division, and select our teams and groups. And in this instance, I did set the tee sheet to be done by groups because they're playing a scramble, so they need to kind of be together. And the payout is going to be to team, and this will be a stroke play event, and it will be a team foursome versus field because everyone's playing together. And ball wise, we're going to go scramble, 18 holes, and then this time we're going to use the 20, 15, 10, and 5, which is one of the standard ways of doing scrambles. And we're not going to drop any holes or retain ties, so we're going to save this. And this will be our net scramble. And then we're also going to add in a gross scramble. And one of the things you may have noticed is under handicap, there is not a way to do gross and net with a bias for scrambling. So I'm going to show you linking them here just a second. Payouts to team, team foursome versus field, scramble. Oh, let me change this. Got our gross for handicap, retain ties, everything else the same. We'll save that. So now, just like we did in the multi-round tournament, we're going to link these two, and we will call this scramble overall. And we will select the 2 ones we want to link for just round 4. Go to advanced settings, keep results gross and net, and we will have gross as the bias. Save that. So now we have our 2 individual tournaments and then are linked together for the best result. We're going to go to rounds. And you'll notice here there's no multi-round down the bottom, and that's because we didn't actually select any multi-round tournaments for these final 2 days. Rounds, we're going to enter our scores, random, go to our leaderboard, alright. And now we have our net and gross with a bias for gross set up with our results. So now we're going to go to round 4 and do a Stableford 4-person event. And then we were going to link these back with our scramble. And I'll show you how that works. Going to add a new Stableford 4-person team. T-sheet is in order by teams. Payouts to team. And we're going to go Stableford. We're going to go team foursome versus field. And on this one, we're going to do average of all balls. And then we have our scores. That way, with the average of all balls, that way we just have the 1 score for the team. And we'll go net, save this. And then we will also create a gross Stableford. Stableford gross, select our correct division, our teams, organized by T-sheet, payouts to team, stroke to Stableford, competition, team foursome versus field. We're going to go average of all balls. We got our standard results in there. And this one will be gross. Alright, we'll save this. And then we will link these 2 together. So, keep best results. And then we'll go with gross. Okay. Alright. So now we're going to enter our scores. Random. Test out our leaderboard. And let it process. Okay, now we have our Stableford net and gross winners. Well, it doesn't look like we have anything else, but thank you everybody for joining us, and hope to see you next week when we're going to go into printed materials. Have a good day, and we will see you soon.